Hi, my name is Sammy. I'm a 5'1" emotional projector. And today I'm going to be interviewing a mental projector. And I would like to go ahead and let her introduce herself before we start our interview. So would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Sammy. I am Sashya Clark. I am a 6'2" mental projector, which basically means that like all 7 of my 9 centers are completely open. So anyway, and I am a blogger. I write. I'm actually hoping to be a published author someday, but right now I'm a freelance author, and I have a website, www.sashyaclark.com. And I just became certified to do level 1 human design readings, Karen Curry Parker's training. So super excited about that. I love human design and all things human design. It's so cool. So thanks for having me.
Congratulations, that's incredible. I think I saw your post about that, but that is
Yeah,
amazing.
I
So
was stoked.
congratulations, that's so
Thank you.
amazing.
Yeah.
And you said www. Sasha, you said sashyaclark.com, was that correct?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
SASHYA Clark, CLARK.com.
Okay, awesome. And you can see in the corner there, I'm sure when people are watching that it will have her name there. And I'll type that in there as well at the bottom. So anything you need to get a hold of her will be in the description
Oh,
below on
thanks.
the video, of course. And awesome. That's so exciting. I'm so happy for you. Okay. So the first question that I want to ask is, you talked about the open center, right? So,
Mhm.
well, I guess could you describe what a like what it is to have like the mental authority to everyone in the audience, or what would you
Yeah.
describe that for yourself?
Okay, so it can, depending on which website you look at, you can get this really complicated answer of like mental authority is, well, first of all, it's not an authority of the mind. So like it sounds like it. One of the coolest websites I've seen says that that you should put the word like environmental projector, because we often need to talk through or soundboard in different environments to get clarity about a decision. Um, of course, my strategy is still to wait to be invited. So whether I talk through a decision or not, if I get invited to do something projectors get like in a lifetime with the big things like getting married and career changes and stuff, we don't get tons of invitations. So that kind of simplifies the thing too. If I just don't go out and initiate, that totally, I don't have to make a lot of decisions if I'm not initiating. So, but then it's very similar to self-projected projectors, because they too have to kind of talk through things. Probably the biggest difference between a self-projected projector and a mental projector is that they literally can manifest a bit with that vibration in the heart center while they're talking out their problem, whereas I have to talk it out to find out what I want before I can manifest it, if that makes sense. So it's
No.
their process might be a little faster than a mental projector. Um, the other way I've heard it called is that it's like no authority. So what that means is there's no inner authority. And that doesn't mean I have to go around listening to everybody and they're all my bosses or something, but it just means that I don't have a gut feeling like a sacral generator. I don't have an emotional wave I have to wait through. I don't have an ego where I can just decide something and put my will into it. In fact, my will center and my emotional solar plexus and one other center, it's escaping my attention right now, but I have 3 of them that have absolutely no gates defined in it too. So I'm kind of a unique mental projector too, not to
Yeah,
toot my own horn,
I
but I
was
have, yeah,
not to
anyway.
toot my own horn. You should toot
Yeah.
your own horn.
Well, it is. I've had several people that have looked at my chart that have like, wow, I've seen a lot of mental projectors and I've never seen one with 3 completely undefined centers. So
You have a very unique gait. I was actually looking at it earlier before we got on this call. Sorry, I was gonna look it up real quick, but yeah, no, you have yeah, so your will is
open, yeah,
completely open. Your solar
yeah,
plexus is completely open, meaning no gates, and your G center. Um,
yes.
so
Oh,
my spleen center is completely open. It's like,
really?
well, yeah, it's the only one. And so I actually am here to like conquer fear, like be fearless. So it's
Awesome.
amazing. So when you have those open centers, anyone who's listening, look at it more as like, oh my God, I'm going to have to be taking all this in. No, it's
No.
actually your ability to conquer all of this, like you can take in all of this and then like be fearless in whatever it is that like that specific gate or that specific center is all about. So it's actually a
Yeah,
really beautiful gift to
it
have
is.
open. I think that's incredible. Yeah, it's yeah, that I mean really like that really touches my heart.
I
So
think that, I mean, up until the last year and a half of me really diving deep into human design, the Open G Center was kind of my Achilles heel for a long time in my life because I mean, completely open, completely undefined, because I feel like I've spent a lot of my life, or maybe wasted some time in my life, just like wondering, who am I? Am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right, in the right direction? And luckily I married somebody with my husband, who's my soulmate. His name's Ben, since, yeah, and he's
hey
probably
Ben.
going to watch this video. Yeah, he's my biggest fan too with my writing. He's awesome, but he has a defined G center. He's a generator, and so sometimes what's beautiful about it now is that we just bought a new house. We ended up in the same community that we sold the other house in, but for a while there, I'm like, I know I'll be happy wherever because I don't have a defined G center. So when we would go looking at houses, I would check in with the sacral. How do you like this? How do do you like this yard? Do you like this kitchen? Do you, and just let him go, yes, no, all day long. And then he would ask me, I don't know if he doesn't really know a lot about human design, but he's learned, or we've just celebrated 14 years of marriage, and he's learned that I'm really sensitive to the things in our environment. And so if he would ask me, well, how do you feel? What kind of vibe are you getting from this community? And and we'd say stuff to our real estate agent like, I don't know, this neighborhood feels shady. And she's like, how do you even know that? You haven't met the neighbors yet. And we're like, we just know things,
Yeah. And I want to point out something that I think is imperative for everyone watching is that, okay, like, do you notice how she would ask him those yes or no or
Yeah,
answers? But then when Ben was asking you questions, he asked you more open-ended questions. I
totally.
think that is incredible way for anyone watching, if you have a partner or a friend, to make sure that you are, either doing yes or or yes or no questions compared to open-ended, because
Yeah.
projectors tend to need those more space to be able to express those kind of things. So I love that you pointed that out. That's amazing.
Well,
Um,
and you're actually onto something, because another thing people get confused about is some people new to human design would want their husband to invite them to move. And I didn't need to wait for him to invite me because he wants to be still married to me and he wants to still live with me. Do you see what I'm saying? Like the invitation came when we all said I do, right? That all happened way long ago. And
yeah.
so I mean, I did tease him about human design and say, well, are you going to invite me to move? And he's like, yeah, would you like to move with me? And I'm like, yeah, I would love to, so, but I was totally teasing him, but
Right.
but yeah, like you don't need it. Like, I don't need an invitation to have a conversation with him. Although if I am going to give him advice, I do ask permission first,
Yes.
but I don't need to wait for him to say, hey, what do you think we should do about getting a new car? He doesn't have to ask me that. I can say, I have been thinking about the car. Are you ready to hear about it? Because I already have an invitation to be in that relationship. So,
Yes.
and we are at a trust level. That's not true maybe the first year of marriage, but at 14 years, we have our trust level where he knows I'm bringing something up out of a place of respect, not out of a
Of
place to
course.
like criticize or put him down or make him feel bad or whatever. So
Yes. And I think every projector listening to this can be a reminder of, I say it a lot on my channel, is that you can give yourself the invitation as long as it's coming from a place of
yeah,
love and not a place
right.
of putting someone down. You can give yourself the invitation. You do not need invitation for small things. You do not need invitation to invite your friend to dinner, to invite something. Don't.
No,
But
you
people
don't.
get confused. They do. And
No,
it's
it's yeah,
confusing. It really is. So
right.
again, trust your inner gut. Okay,
I
so
would say to use if you're using that trick of asking permission to give feedback, I would use it very much more reservedly with manifestors than with, you could probably have a little leeway with generators because it's a yes no question. What can I give you some feedback, right? They'll check in with their sacral, it's fine. But manifestors generally need to really feel that respect when you're asking. You can't be just like my little brother, I love him to death. He's a manifestor, and I can't be just like, hey, can I tell you some advice? And then just ramble right into it and not wait for him to actually answer the question, because he'll feel totally like you just totally overrode my autonomy, and they needs all that freedom to decide for themselves everything. So
Mhm.
I with him generally wait for him to actually ask what I think about something.
Totally.
because he needs to feel like his thinking and his decision is totally respected first. So anyway, that's a whole, like,
No,
I could
absolutely.
talk about the relationship. Obviously I want you to, when I first found out I was a projector, I immediately started wanting to run all the charts of the people I was closest to, because I'm a projector. I'm way more interested in everybody else than myself anyway. So
Yeah, no, and we could do like, maybe we'll do some
Right.
follow-up videos on the relationship stuff, because that is great. I love all that. Okay, so now that we've like
Sorry.
kind of defined, no, please don't be sorry. This is great information. So I wanted to ask you, what is an example of like when, like, I love how you brought up the fact that you said environment is like a good way of describing it. I
Mhm.
remember when we had talked earlier that you had said that like you could sit in the same room and you could be like not getting something, and then you could walk outside and all of a
Oh
sudden.
yeah.
So could you describe more about that? Because I do think that environment, like the environmental kind of, instead of
Yeah.
mental, is a great word to describe like kind of the authority.
Sure.
So just,
It's very similar to reflectors in that if you're in the wrong place or with the wrong people, it kind of doesn't matter what the answer is, because it will not vibe right, if that makes sense. I mean,
yeah,
especially like I'm sure you can think of times when you were in a situation with a group of friends, even where what you were about to say really wasn't being invited. I mean, like hardcore, not you, they don't want to hear it. And you go ahead and say it anyway, because I was like 20 once, right? And it really like falls flat on your face, and then everybody's fighting and it's bad.
and it
And like
hurts.
there's nothing about having the right words or the right timing that will fix being in the wrong situation with the wrong people if you're an environmental projector. I think I haven't done a ton of readings, but one of the common denominators among my friends and family who let me do their charts, and that are projectors, is that we are all a little very attracted to being in nature. And I know there's you probably know this really well with your Reiki and the chakra stuff that you do, but grounding yourself is so important. And I've got all this energy way up here in my aura, and so sometimes what's changing is just I need to get in a different environment so that I can settle down and embody the rest of my aura and really feel through what's going on and how I feel about what I'm trying to decide, or because depending on the neutrino weather, I could have a day where my G center is lit up, and if I happen to be in nature at the time and settle down, I can really get a lot of clarity in just a moment, like the same clarity that I'd get after talking to 5 people and hearing what I'm saying about it. It is really amazing how powerful being in nature is. And I think that's not just to mental projectors. I think a lot of projectors feel that way. I'm not sure how many are aware of it, but I think that most of the projectors I'm friends with are very much in love with nature. So
Yeah, no, and I think nature in general is beautiful for everyone. I think it's definitely something we take advantage of for sure. But yes, no, absolutely. Any type of nature, any type of plants, even in your house during the winter,
yes,
is incredible. Having your feet on the ground and just feeling like, yeah, letting go, especially as as a mental projector, like having that ability to let go of things you no longer really need to hold on to is probably
Mhm.
imperative. It's not necessarily feeling like you have to keep it in those open centers. It's more
Right.
letting it flow through those open centers, be grounded, and let it be released, which I feel like is,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really beautiful. And I love that. I love that. So yay nature. Yay nature.
Yay, nature. Absolutely.
um,
Yes.
okay, so what do you feel like, and you kind of did already explain the whole difference between the mental and the self-projected projector, which I love.
Yeah.
I do feel like people miss those, like misinterpret those.
Yeah.
But how do you feel like what do you feel like a misconception of a mental authority is? Like, what do you feel like the biggest misconception you've put up, like people have put on you, or that you've
Sure.
misunderstood whenever you started out?
Yeah. I think definitely one of the biggest misconceptions, especially if you're a person that isn't intuitive in any way, like I have some splenic definition, even though my spleen isn't, the whole center is not defined. I have gates there. And I also just have a spiritual practice. I have a connection to my higher being.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm attracted to the part of human design that kind of aligns with Jewish Kabbalah too. So there's actually like levels of the soul, and human design really only conquers like the base levels of your soul. There's so much more. I mean, if you think about like a vehicle, like if let's say that my body is like, I don't know, a Volkswagen Bug, right? I mean, I cannot pack into the space that that Bug occupies all of the things that my soul is. My soul is way bigger than this experience. My soul is infinite, really, at a certain level, right? And I'm not even a girl or a boy at a certain level. I am like literally seriously just a soul. And I have value just because I'm a soul. And then that part, that infinite part, is like interfacing with, I mean, some people call it God, some people call it a higher power or source. I particularly, I'm Jewish, so I relate to it in a lot of other names. But even beyond the names that Judaism provides, or Christianity, or whoever, Buddhism, beyond that, the Jewish Kabbalah teaches that there's this thing called the Ein Sof, and so there is part of God that is unknowable, that we cannot define with terms. And so that's kind of where I go when I get really super up in my head, is I will just stop and be still and connect to that piece of me inside that isn't limited to this time, space, this 3D experience, that is transcended of it just because it exists, and it's connected to something that's so infinite and so difficult to understand that we have a word for it that is like the awesome nothing that we can't, all the rest, we've defined all these things, and all the rest that you can't figure out yet is also there and also true. And it's really beautiful and powerful. And it reminds me that, I don't have to figure it all out right this second. Like
Yeah,
infinite, right? Isn't infinite so much different than
I
Friday?
feel like I'm literally almost in tears just from like, yeah, because like it's like you put words into my mouth, like things that I have tried to translate in any way, and just have come to the conclusion of, I have an open head and open ajna. So for me, it's more like almost the opposite of, I don't have to know it all, but it's okay to be exploring and to experience. And I've always said, even as a kid, like, there's no words that we could even use to describe the infinite of who we are, because we don't have that knowledge. And the beautiful part is just to sit in that peace of just feeling that internal part of us that we know is there. And I just love the way you described our souls, and just, it was so beautiful. I'm probably going to watch that over and over again just to listen to the knowledge that you just gave me. Cause that,
I have a picture drawn in. One of the guys that we met in a Facebook group. So one of the guys in there has asked me to share about it. So hopefully one of these days soon, I will, put the picture I drew, because the Kabbalah has a diagram, and then I like kind of overlaid the body graph onto it, so you could see where the intersection of the different levels of the soul kind of cooperates with the body graph. But anyway, I'm not done with it yet. So, but that's coming soon, I guess. But
yeah.
it's really cool to think about, like, the part of the soul that regulates emotion, and that also has kind of our animal instincts, our survival instincts. Those are the things that are really thoroughly covered. The head and the ajna start tipping into the higher self, the higher aspects of the levels of the soul. But there's still like two more levels beyond that, where we're touching the infinite without, being able, people talk about like prophetic experiences or something like that. There's other levels
Oh,
above the
yeah.
body experience too. So
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's so much. And that's why I always tell people that, just be like, human design is a template and it's beautiful, and let's use what
yeah,
we have. But like there's so much more beyond, and the more you can know from Reiki, or from a religion
yeah,
point, or from no religion, like you don't have to belong to one, like, but there's infinite knowledge that you are able to take in, whether it's seeing auras or whatever, like
right.
anything. Like if you feel drawn to it, then that's your soul calling you to, like, you're ready to know like the next step or whatever.
Yeah,
So
totally.
so beautiful. So the next thing I want to ask you is, like, so you talked about sounding boards or whatever. So again, just to clarify for anyone who's maybe new to this, or wants some clarification, or maybe has a mental, projector child or whatever,
Yeah.
um, what do you feel like is helpful when you need a sounding board? How do you go about that or approach that?
Well, again, to what I do today compared to like 10 years ago when I first met human design, it was very different. I used to ask permission to just vent because I didn't have a lot of relationships that I didn't know myself well enough to know that I just needed these sounding board relationships. I think my first taste of it was like I had a therapist for a while in my mid-20s. And I would just go and talk, and she was this, I mean, I at one point started questioning what I was paying her for, because she would be this beautiful soul that would just hold space for me, and I would talk for the entire 55 minutes or whatever she was billing. And she would say, she would never give me any feedback. She'd just take a couple notes, and sometimes she'd cry with me when I was crying. But it was so healing. And I couldn't figure out why it was helping me when
I would need.
yeah, I couldn't figure out how it was helping when she wasn't saying anything back. But I never felt, but her vibe was always like, I never felt judged by her at all. It was totally beautiful.
That's beautiful.
And I healed a lot through that experience. I think I went to see her for maybe like 3 years and healed a lot. But that was my first relationship that I can think of as an adult anyway, where I could just talk and talk and talk and talk through things. And then I had a mentor about 10 years ago, I guess. If I don't quit telling you how old I was when something happened, I'm gonna end up telling everybody how old I am now. So, which I'm not embarrassed about, but I'm on the inside, I feel 18 forever. So I don't know. I don't want everybody to know how
Well,
old
your
my body
soul is
inside.
infinite. So
Yes, that's right. My soul's infinite.
your souls are forever.
I'm never growing up. True. Okay. So anyway, about 10 years ago, I had a mentor, and she remarked one time when we were just getting off the phone, she's like, I figured out if I give you enough space to talk, you have really good insights about things, and you'll come to really good conclusions, and often the right conclusion if you just open enough space. And so, yeah, I heard that about the time I heard that I was a mental projector for the first time. And then now I have two really incredible, beautiful people. My husband's one of them, in my life, and who I can talk to. I can just keep talking about the same thing, and they know I'm not trying to elicit a decision or any kind of feedback. And my husband knows if I really want him to say something that I'll ask. And so sometimes he just lets me go, and I don't talk for 55 minutes straight anymore like I used to when I was in therapy. Just so you know, I do it in smaller nuggets because I think people's attention span can't quite handle the whole thing all at the same time. And I do live with this guy, so like I don't want to make him feel annoyed all the time, right? And then I also have learned, I used to have to commute about 30 minutes to work back one way. And so I used to just turn the radio off and talk out loud. And I would just imagine my higher power or source, again, whatever name you want to call that, was just sitting in the next seat. And I would just talk like I was talking to my friend. And some people would call that prayer. I think it's prayer, but it's also a way of using the sounding board, part of my authority, to just talk things out until I can hear there's something magical happens, like when we were just talking about that Kabbalah thing, and you're like, oh, that kind of we were having an emotional reaction together. I felt it too. It's energetically charged. And so I can hear certain words as I'm saying them when they come out of my mouth, and I hear them in my own ear, whether someone's in the room or not. I can hear it vibrate differently if it's true. I'm very aurically sensitive to the sounds of voices. I can tell if my husband's had a bad day just by the way he says hello when he comes in. And so I don't know if that's because I'm a musician or if that has to do with my particular human design, but I do know that it works for me. And so sometimes I can hear myself, and I go, oh, that was BS. I don't really believe what I just said. Or sometimes it comes out of my mouth and I go, wow, that was actually really true. I have clarity all of a sudden. It's kind of cool. So that's what sounding board really means. We're not eliciting. So for those of you that are new to human design, having no authority and having sounding board as your authority does not mean that you go to 5 people and get their advice about your problems. What it means is that you take your problem and you talk through all the different angles, what you think about it, what you feel about it, what, the pros and cons if you need to, and then you talk to someone else. And then I would encourage you to go in nature and talk to the tree, or, it doesn't matter who you're talking to there. If you believe in God, talk to God. But if you don't believe in God, talk to just the air and hear how it comes back to you when in a neutral environment like that. Because when you're talking off of someone's aura, you will often hear back. Like maybe I'm talking to somebody with a defined G center, I'll hear a lot of direction back from them, right? But so you sometimes want to compare that to when it's just your aura in an open, neutral place like nature, and or in your car, hear what it sounds like when there isn't anybody's aura influencing it too, and just compare and contrast. It is a little like sampling, like a reflector, but once you get more familiar with your own, again, the own vibrational truth inside of your own words, it for me, it's gotten faster to recognize when I'm getting closer to something being right. It used to take a lot longer. So
Okay, yeah. So again, just like the whole point of experimenting, which is human design to begin with, like we're
right.
experiment. So I love that open-ended aspect. I did want to mention though too, like I have the gate 12 so in my throat, and so when you say the
Yeah.
vibrations, the tones, I resonate with that a lot as well. Like, ooh, I
Yeah.
don't know if that's true, but I also notice that within myself. If I say something and I'm like, that is right, so just, I also recommend anyone who does have that mental authority to check like whether or not it's defined or not, that doesn't matter, but like your throat, I think it can teach a lot of the gates that you have, because
Hmm.
there is a lot of power in how you can figure out like what's correct for you, because
Oh yeah.
I don't even have, I am an emotional authority, but I will literally talk out loud to nature or to myself
Hmm.
in my car. Because yeah, you're right. It depends, like whenever I'm alone and I'm not around someone's aura, then it's like, it's me. And it's like, I love how you explained, like whether people say prayer, sometimes for me talking in my head is distracting. So saying it out loud actually helps
Yeah.
too. So I love how, again, even though there's different authorities and there's different types and all this stuff, it's like we have so many similarities as well, and
Right.
so many things that we can all utilize in our own unique way. So it's beautiful to
Hmm.
be reminded that like we're all people and we're all just, we all can do things that, like, I don't know, just it's just beautiful how we can be so different
Right.
and then also be so similar at the same time and learn from each other. I just think that's a beautiful example of that. And thank you so much for giving so many like advice for people who have this authority, because I know it is more of a rare authority. And so
That's the 6-2 in me. I'm like, well, you can use me as an example, and here's what you shouldn't do.
yeah. Here's what
don't
doesn't work.
don't give manifestors unsolicited advice. It never works.
Well, like, yeah, no,
It
just
pains them in their soul. Actually, it doesn't not just not work. It actually hurts them at a very inner child spot. It's
yeah.
very painful.
I have an older brother who's a manifesting generator, and I've learned the hard way to just like
Yeah.
let him come to me. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Zip
that's
it.
no disrespect for
Not
them.
at all.
They
Yeah.
have an amazing advice and
Oh
amazing
yeah.
day once they're ready. So yeah.
Yeah.
So okay. So another thing I wanted to ask was like, let's talk about your channel. So 6447,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Okay. So explain that gate to the audience, and then
Sure.
maybe a story about, because I know we talked a lot about the dreams and stuff like that. I would
Sure.
love to hear about that.
Yeah, okay, so the 6447 is the channel of abstraction, I think, in the traditional human design lingo. And basically, the way I understand it is that projectors in general tend to hold like a template of what is possible for the rest of the collective. And so with the 6447, oftentimes I will get like a download of some amazing ideas or divine inspiration, if you would call it that, or just inspiration. I mean, again, depending on what your belief system is, there's lots of ways you could describe it. But I am learning. I used to feel really frustrated by it because I would want to write it down and then start acting on it right away,
Yeah.
of course, without an invitation. Because someone else, because this would happen so many times. Like, I would get this really cool idea, I'd start working on it, and then someone else, like on Facebook or something, will publish the book that I was thinking about writing. And then I'm like, what? That was my idea. Somebody beat me to it. I mean, literally like in 2 weeks, So I'm coming to learn through experimenting with my own chart that some of these big ideas just are for me to hold and love and help. Again, if you believe in prayer, maybe I'm supposed to pray that that's something that the world would need. Whoever gets to do that. Just like it goes through me. And then if someone comes to invite me to do something, then I know that idea was for me to work on and for me to do. And so I keep a little idea book of things that it was a suggestion I actually learned from one of Karen Curry Parker's classes, is that I just write the ideas down. I've got all these idea babies is what I call them, because they're really precious, and love on them, and and wait until I feel like my soul or the universe is inviting me to take action on one. And some of them, like I said, just come to pass before I get a chance. I also dream pretty vividly and pretty regularly. And so there are lots of times when my dreams will help me kind of be prepared for what's about to happen in the near, like coming future. And the first time that happened to me, this is the story I think you wanted me to tell. I was 8 and I had a dream that my brother got hurt. He's my only brother. Poor guy. I don't think anyway, he was littler than me. He was just a little kindergartner, and I jumped that he got hurt on the playground, that he fell off. I don't know if you ever used to do this, but we were 80s kids, and so we used to hang upside down on the monkey bars, and then like flip ourselves around and all these funny tricks that we used to be able to
We
do.
did, yeah. I feel like
Yeah.
every kid did like some
Yeah.
crazy monkey bar experience or
Yeah.
some weird thing on the recess where they were like, let's just try it.
Yeah, exactly. I used to be able to do some really cool tricks. Well, anyway, in the dream, he was hanging upside down by the back of his knees and fell and like cracked his head open over one of his eyebrows. And so I didn't think anything of it, of course, because it's just a dream, right? And so I go to school and I'm like playing kickball with my friends. And for some reason, kindergarten's having recess at the same time as us big second graders. I don't know why that day, but they like had to adjust something for lunch. I don't know. Anyway, and he is literally hanging upside down on the bars. And I'm like about to kick and he's falling and I can't yell or do anything to stop it. It's like everything suddenly went into slow motion. I'm watching my dream happen in real life, like the very next day at recess. And so I went home and, he got taken care of. The nurse, everybody, I mean, he didn't even need stitches. It was just a crack. They ended up like, the paramedics came and put this like really tight tape and it just ended up, healing back together. He was fine. And he ironically broke the same spot open like 4 more times in his childhood. So and never did get stitches for it. I don't think. Maybe once they ended up needing stitches, but yeah, he's a tough cookie. So anyway, but that day after my mom got home from work, he was telling her what happened, and I started like getting, like crunching into this little ball, and she's like, Sasha, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't want to talk about it right now. And so he ended up, my brother didn't sit still very long back then. And so he still doesn't, he's a manifestor. And so he decided to go, conquer something in his bedroom. I don't know, build some Legos or something.
In his bedroom.
Yeah, I don't know what he was doing. He had to go, he had lots of swords and stuff. And I don't know what he was doing. But when he finally left the room, I told her that I'm like, I feel like it's my fault that he got hurt. And she's like, did you push him or something? I'm like, no, I didn't do anything to him. I was playing kickball. I don't even know why he was there. I kept saying, why was he even there? He shouldn't have been there, and I shouldn't have been there. We never were at recess at the same time. She's like, what are you talking about? And I finally spilled the beans because I really, really thought I was responsible for him getting hurt because I didn't do anything to warn him or protect him. And, I mean, I was his older sister, so it was drilled into me, especially as a 6'2", that he was my responsibility from a very young age. So I finally told her, well, I had a dream about it and I didn't say anything. And she looks at me and she goes, well, how are you supposed to know that dream was something you needed to tell me about versus the dream you had the night before that didn't happen? And I was like, well, I don't know. That's the first time. She asked me, was that the only time that you've ever dreamt about something before it happened? And I'm like, yeah, well, that wasn't the last time. It's happened a lot, but she totally like honored it and was like, let me know if you ever need to tell me anything. And I'm like, okay. And I went and did some homework and that was kind of the end of it. But anytime for the rest of her life, she just passed away a couple years ago. May her memory always be for a blessing. But for the rest of her life, anytime I'd have a dream about her or my brother, it's something that I felt was important. I mean, because it had them in it, I would tell her about it. So, and if you're a person with a 6447 and you have dreams like me too, one of the ways I've kind of learned to discern if it's about me or about someone else and whether I should say something or not was number one, do I even have a relationship with this person? Like I don't go telling people I don't know, like that I had a dream about you. But because it would kind of freak most people out, I think. The hunch I have. But also if I'm outside dreaming about someone, that's usually outside my aura and it's outside my life, and it's about their life. And if I'm inside, like in a building or a house or a hotel or something inside, then it's a lot of times it can be just like me working through my own emotions or discharging some of the energy from the day. Or sometimes I go to bed. This is another way I quote unquote pray, is sometimes I'll go to bed intentionally thinking about something I am having a hard time understanding, either about what I'm studying or about a problem I'm trying to solve. And I'll just ask God if he would come to me in my dream and help me understand it, because I think my soul can understand things my brain can't. And so sometimes I'll see a picture, but again, we're usually inside a building of some sort. And then that's how I know it's like just advice for me or just something I need to know. and not to share
Okay.
with other people. So
I love
anyway,
that. Honestly, you gave me goosebumps like literally throughout that entire thing. Like I know I've heard it before because we had talked about it before, but like
sure.
I don't know, sometimes I just have like absolute goosebumps because it's amazing like what we're capable of, and we don't even give our gifts that we all have to bring to the table enough credit. And so I
Mm,
think just taking the time to appreciate and just to value and to honor that gift that you were given is incredible. And I just want to give you that and just like give you that space to just say thank you so much for sharing that. Because I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there that feel that might watch this video and feel like, I mean, the world we live in, like people could feel crazy or they could feel like they don't have anyone to turn to. And so just having like someone explain that like this is something that's a gift and that like you can work with is just
mm.
I think it gives people hope, and it's a beautiful thing to share. So thank you so much for your vulnerability and for your just I don't even have words. I really just I literally had goosebumps the whole time because
Thanks.
truly the fact is just that like you weren't even supposed to be at recess at the same. It's just amazing how much coincidences start to
Mhm.
add up when you start to notice this stuff and you start to like really build on this soul connection. And you're just like, wow, this is like all part of something bigger, and we're all essentially one. And it's beautiful that we
Right.
can look out for each other in our own unique way. So
Yeah.
thank you again for sharing that story. I think it's
Welcome.
amazing.